Good afternoon, everybody. Bobby Cleveland here, Executive Director of Oklahoma Corrections Professionals, along with representing J.J. Humphrey and our special guest, Jason Lemons, former chief at Dick Connors Correctional Center, retired after about 21 or 22 years, and very knowledgeable about the situation. So, Jason, let me ask you, let's just start off here. Let me ask you a question. What's your take? Do you think that we're safer today than we were a year and a half ago?
Without a question, we are not safer. The prisons are in worse shape, and I really wish everybody would get on the same page and really start addressing it. And
Hold it, Jason. Now, Wednesday, we had Kay Thompson say violence is down. So are you saying that you disagree with that statement?
I'm saying I'm 1,000% disagreeing, and I'm saying everybody that works, officers that work in the department, to include wardens and down, would all disagree. 80% of the staff would disagree with that statement. And I would love to, at some time, I would love to have a meeting. I would have a meeting with the director and on the Senate floor, wherever, about all of that. And I could bring statistics and proof that shows that is not true.
Well, let me ask you, Jason, what do you think it does to morale when they hear somebody go out, when you're down there in the trenches every day, dealing with stabbings, dealing with assaults, when we're showing these all on video, how do you even make a statement when you show a rape, when you show multiple assaults on video? We have them on video, and then you walk right out and go, violence is down. What does that do for morale for those people who are dealing with that day in, day out, and know things are getting horrendously worse? How do you think that makes those officers feel?
Well, when I was there, I left the 1st of January. Morale was already down. So at that point, it was down. We already knew he was full of crap, a lot of the things that he was doing. We knew we were short-staffed. I knew, that's why I left. I knew we weren't getting any help. I knew there was no relief on the way. I knew I was in a no-win situation. So now we're at a point where I don't even know I wouldn't even say morale's low. I would say there is absolutely, within the Department of Correction, I would say there is no morale anymore. There is no trust within the top management at all. It's past broken. You could maybe super glue or duct tape or something if it was broken. The Department of Corrections needs a complete overhaul. And until that happens, I'm telling you, it's exactly like we've been saying. It's just getting worse and worse. I've got something that I want to read that I really think is going to hit home, and it got sent to me from an officer, a lieutenant, I don't really know, but it says, "I seen your broadcasts about the inmates, but what about the officers that go to work daily? They get treated like shit by their captains. We are short-staffed, but I do want to say this before I keep going. Part of the reason that the captains treat them as like that is because they're getting pressure from above them too. Sure. So that's not, I mean, those captains are, and I'll get into it, but those captains are having to work yard. They're having to work a post. They're not getting to manage their people. So all those captains, so on that part of it, those captains are getting told too, we got to have these many people, I hear they're lying on, they're telling them just to fill those rosters. I've heard that from several. I heard there's 2 rosters that go around. But, it is, the captains, guys, just like the officers, they catch it constantly too. I'm not making an excuse for them. I'm just saying, the chiefs from everybody at that facility is feeling that same pressure that you guys are feeling too. So I just wanted to say that, but it says we are short-staffed. We can't even take off for vacation, which is true. We're running a unit with only 1 person and sometimes no people when you have hospital duties. How about the bloods not locking down? That was a problem when I was there during count. 1 guy cannot make 80, 160 people lock down. You just can't do it. And they know, those inmates know that they have no help. So not locking down during count because the locking devices are being tampered. They'll put little pieces of metal. They'll put their toothbrushes. They'll put everything. They'll pop those locks. They screw with those. Are being tampered with. They use their IDs to pop out. It's not safe. There is no structure. They stay up in the day room smoking K2 all night. Hence, our assaults, our drug overdoses, they're all going up. It's all hand in hand. They stay up all day. The K2 is so strong you can smell it down the hallway because they know there's no relief coming. Before you enter the door, getting sick after smelling it, after several hours of breathing it, the ventilation systems are dirty, moldy, and black. True. Being yelled at in briefing for someone else's, it says bullshit. The shit gets deeper. We feel like no one cares, and the good old boy system really sucks because they see everybody that he's brought in and the people that get promoted that have no experience or should not be in these positions. Captains and LTs with no experience make rank, and they push others away because they are not inside the clique. So, I get messages like that. I mean, that was really good, and it was detailed how. My admin lieutenant quit and went back to Vanita because they weren't processing her misconduct for throwing them all out.
Jason,
so they're not even.
Jason,
yeah.
You want to hear something funny? Wednesday in our hearing, I read a letter that inmates put out, not officers. Inmates put it out saying they're the way they treat officers is causing a problem. It makes, and they quoted 6 had left. And they said, we're already short. They said they were short 9 case managers. They left 6 officers, that people were quitting because of the way they were treated, because of the conditions, because they were in danger. And they said, this can't go on. And again, what people need to know, when we're talking about these officers, the inmates aren't going to be safe. So when all these gangsters are out popping doors, and when all this K2's being smoked, and when they got the run of the place, guess what? The rest of the inmates are going to be raped, are going to be stabbed, are going to be beaten, are going to be extorted, and these officers are not able to keep up, and they're quitting. So it all goes like what you said a while ago with the drugs. It goes hand in hand, and we've been saying that for 3 years, that you're going to see escalation. You're going to see more dope means more violence, means more of this kind of stuff. And when you see it happening, when you see somebody, when you hear 2 stabbings a month, then, you can say, okay, that's pretty bad. When you start getting 2 stabbings a week, you go, golly, that's escalation. That's, but when you start getting 2 stabbings a day, that's when you have to say, and that's what we see happening in prison. I'm not saying we're having 2 stabbings a day, although that wouldn't surprise me across the state.
I would say there's a stab. I would say within the Department of Corrections, there's 5 stabbings a week. I would say at the very least, there's 1 stabbing a day.
I would be shocked. It would not. We had come out maybe 6 months ago saying we thought every other day, and right now, if we, I think we'd be pretty safe. I don't think we'd be over exaggerating saying that's what Wednesday, Jason, was what I was doing. I told the media, yeah, we're reporting some of the same thing. It's kind of redundant, but what I've done is put it in a 10-day window. And that's what y'all got to understand. Everything I'm reporting is in a 10-day window. And I think we had, Bob, you remember, was it 2 rapes, 4 deaths?
More than 2 rapes.
Yeah. So it was just, it was horrific, though. I mean, when you're talking about, and again, one of those rapes we reported was a person saying, don't put me back in that cell. They're raping me back in the cell. And he was raped, and I was told he was put in the hospital. So they ought to be able to verify that. I gave him the prison, said the guy was put in hospital. Bob, are you hearing anything about them pulling down all the PREA? They had that posted. Well, Bob, I'm getting 5,000. Have you heard anything about them changing?
I've heard that they're I don't think nationally they're changing the PREA.
Is that what the deal is?
And I've heard that, and they're taking down all the signs in the prisons about PREA. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what I've heard. Well,
So
let me
that
ask you a
was a-
question. Let me ask you a question, both of you. Why would DOC want to come on and say that violence is down in the prisons? What are they gaining?
Well, it's because the director is putting on this facade that he wants everybody to think it, look what I fixed, and he's carried on the charade so long. Now he'll really have egg all over his face. What he should have done when he come in, because it was bad. It wasn't like it is now, but it wasn't great. But if he would have come in and he would have said, we've got all these problems, we need to do this, and just been transparent. We need to lock a few of these mediums down. We need to put all the violent offenders here. We need to lock them down. We need to reevaluate. I need more people. Now let's concentrate on getting more people in here. And, but he wanted to look at me, look at what I'm doing. And he's carried it on for so long. And I don't know. Part of it, I think, is because he doesn't have the experience to know it's not going to get better until you get a handle on these and until you get staff into these prisons. So I think, the inexperience of not knowing, because I guess maybe he thought he would be able to just magically turn it around. I don't even know.
I agree. What problem is when he came in right off the bat, if he would have reported how bad it was, then he would have done nothing but look better, because he would have been fixing, if he'd have come in and actually said, we are this shorthanded. Here's the real numbers. We're shorthanded. Here's really what's happening, and started reporting that. Even if it went worse, what I'd have come in and said, we're at a place, I don't know anybody who can actually fix this. This is really bad, but we're going to make efforts, and then start talking about what we're doing to make the efforts, and people would have got behind him. But because he came out and made it sound like, look at what all I'm doing, and all he's doing is buying new offices. I mean, if you want to say, well, we got a prettier headquarters that I like to shoot the floor in, okay, then yeah, we got that. But what's happened to these prisons? Are they filthy? Are they dirty? Are we putting 8 people together? Are you hooking extension cords to run your kitchen from another floor? All that kind of stuff. If you'd have went in and showed that to start with, then guess what? When you get electricity, which ain't no big deal, but if you go and running cords and go, look, now we got electricity. Now we're going somewhere. Look, we're trying to hire people. Now we're going somewhere. He didn't do that, and now he's got to try to sell this facade that he's doing something. And I will tell you another thing, and this is not, I'm not downing Kay Thompson. I'm not mad at Kay Thompson, but Kay Thompson's never worked in prison. She don't know. So when she gets these reports, she don't know whether they're true. She don't know how to interpret them. She knows nothing. And for her to go out there and say that means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, nobody within the department even takes her serious.
Well, and when you're sitting there going, I've got videos of a rape. I've got videos, and I don't know, Jason, if you got a chance to see that, I sent it to you so you'd be able to discuss that. But again, the minute I watched it, it was a setup deal. I mean, they had somebody stationed to do that. That guy got set up, but he needed set up. I got no problem with them setting him up because he's responsible. He knew better. He shouldn't do it. But the reason that happens is because the department has ignored that issue, has not disciplined those officers. And so everybody just says, hey, no big deal. I'm getting called by inmates saying, hey, that goes on a daily basis. Me and Bob got called by a person who got out, had spent 11 years in a women's facility. And she told us, said, hey, it happens on a daily basis. And she said, that's not just talking women getting raped by other inmates. She's talking about having sex with officers.
And it used to happen because these things have all happened before.
Oh, absolutely.
But not at the rate. Not at the rate. It's never been at the rate that it is, Director. That's the difference. And when you have an issue, you got to have a plan in place to fix that issue, and you don't have a plan. Well, you have these mediums locked down. A few of these, you should have some high structured mediums to lock down the violent offenders until you can get people to man those.
And ignoring the problem, I used to tell people when I was working with them on drug and alcohol, when you ignore the problem, it rarely fixes itself. Problems don't fix themselves. You have to take control of those problems and fix them. And ignoring that or denying it and going out there and say, oh, violence is down when violence is up. And what we're talking about, Director, and again, you hear me use the word, but we're describing it today. It's called escalation. It's when we used to have these things and you caught an employee raping somebody. It was a big deal. It went all over the state throughout the department because it was like, wow, did you hear somebody got caught? Now you catch it on videotape and it's like, yeah, okay, no problem. We got getting beat by 8 people and get void wrote on his head. Okay, no problem. Oh, we got a guy stabbed 70-something times. His head almost severed, stuffed in a trash can. It's an isolated incident. We didn't find him for 8 hours, which means we lied on a couple of counts. Isolated incident. Guy runs from inmates. He calls 911 and says, police, come to the prison and save me. And we lie about that until we had to listen to video. And then, okay, no problem. We get people on, Kay Thompson, I played her yesterday or Wednesday, saying, well, we had to manipulate numbers because if we don't manipulate numbers, then the legislators will cut our budget. Well, let's translate that. We lie about our numbers. That's what that means, okay? That's what she said. I'll put it a little bit. We get accused of being blunt and being too straightforward, but guess what? That's what it said. That's what she said. And again, it's just unbelievable that you're going to say that on public radio. And here's the last thing, and then I'm on. Shut up, but here's my thing. If we have 6 officers leave, I'm hearing officers leave all over the place. Where is the money? Where's the money going? Because again, we know they admitted on that radio deal that they're shorthanded. And to sit there and say, well, we manipulate numbers, we're shorthanded, but violence is down. It's just like, wow, can y'all just, what you say don't even make sense.
JJ, if you came out with a press release and said violence is down at the prisons, we're really in good shape. You know what? They would have came out and just the opposite. They're so obsessed with you and they can't take care of their business. Just like with me, he's so want me to get fired or terminated because we talk about the transparency that we don't have, and they don't like it. They don't like you or they don't like me because we bring it out. And I just like to know one time, anybody from the prisons, tell us when we lied.
I would love to sit down and have a meeting with Harris, the director, all of them.
Oh, I would too. We would like to work because we like to work together, quite frankly. Right. And I think with all working together, we can have a better place. But no,
you were talking about, the assaults going up. Used to be, and JJ, I know you remember, if an inmate ever laid a hand on an officer, or even it was a violent act with another inmate, they went straight to OSP. Now it happens all the time. They'll let him back out on the yard.
I had no boy hit me by accident. He thought he was hitting somebody else. I reached around him to grab something, and my sleeve was rolled up. And I reached around him, and he turned around, and he let me have it, and a whole bunch of inmates around, and you could hear it wham. He laid it on me pretty good. I laughed, and I said, "Hey, come here." We walked outside, and he goes, I didn't know it's you. And you could tell in his eyes. I said, I know that's an accident, but I said, all I got to do is make a call, and things are going to be bad for you. You're on your way to OSP. And what was funny, they were the couple of gangs. He was in a little gangbanger group, and I was having heck with them. They'd always want to wear their what do you call that, busting a sag, and my lieutenant was on me. They don't come through lunch busting a sag, and it was a pain in my butt all the time. And I told that guy, I said, tell you what I'll do, I'll make a deal with you today. If you can get all you bros to come through this line, not busting a sag, and y'all can bust a sag when y'all get out of here. I don't care what you do. You can wear your pants around your knees. I can care less. But I said, when you come through here, if y'all just quit giving me heck, me and you be all right. And he said, done. And I will tell you that did more good for me, because he knew. I mean, back then they knew they laid a hand on you. It was going to be bad news. And again, when we say go to OSP, it weren't going to be pretty for them.
Right.
OSP, that's what it used to be like. And again, now, hey, they don't care.
Well, I was told that what they'll do is, say, for example, they got a lot of drugs coming in, and they're checking guys for bloods, giving tests they're giving them a blood test to find out about the drugs. Well, one particular drug was way higher than the rest. So what do they do to solve the problem? Guess what, Jason? They said don't no longer test for that drug, and then our drug would be down. So they quit testing for that drug, and now their drugs are down. So I'm wondering, are they doing the same thing with violence? Changing the word of violence, that you just got to knock the crap out of somebody or kill somebody before it's violent crime? Have they changed the way they do violence? What they call violent, to make it sound like they're doing better.
They got the Slick Willie. That's kind of like when old Slick Willie way back there got caught with what was her name?
Yeah, remember.
And he said, define sex. Define sex. It's like, yeah. So, I don't think oral sex is sex. Define sex. Yeah.
No, he never said oral sex. He never did say that. That's what it was happening, but he said it wasn't sex. But the thing about it, I'm just wondering out loud here if this is what they're doing, or did they just not just say something that wasn't actually true?
Well, Bob, we brought that out. I asked you that Wednesday. If you remember right back when you were a public safety chair for the House, they sent you serious incidents. And again, it was what's going on in that prison. It was broke down. You got to work on, the facts. Really good information. I enjoyed reading that stuff and looking at it because you kind of kept up with what kind of what's going on. And again, that kept getting thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker until they realized, hey, this is not, Jason, what we were talking about. We brought this up Wednesday at our hearing that used to, they sent out a deal called your SIR, your serious incident report. And got it every month or so, or quarter.
Every week.
I can't remember. Sent that out.
Every week.
It just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I don't know whether they were ashamed to send it out or it just got too much to report to send out, but they quit sending them out. And Bob, they probably quit that, 2 years ago, year ago?
Yeah, a good year and a half ago.
You can't say how great everything is and have all those incident reports. If you're sitting here saying everything's great, we don't have no issues, we're not short-handed. You can't show all those SI. That's what I'm saying. I would have done the exact opposite of what he's done.
Hey,
I would let everybody know every issue I had.
Just so you know, when you leave and you get on the phone, we can hear every word you're saying. Just want you to know. But I was just really, I was shocked when I heard that. And I actually heard her say it, but it makes no sense that
she doesn't know, and I don't want to be too rough on her because although she ought to know that she has no experience, she ought to listen. I mean, surely she's got to hear the stuff we're hearing. But again, we talk about those captains who get pressured down. I figure she gets pressured, and told what to say, and that's her job, and she just says it. But the credibility, she's ruining her credibility because, I mean, like Jason said earlier, anybody who works in prison knows that's a lie. And when she makes a statement like that, our phones light up with people writing letters and calling and saying stuff like Jason read. And again, I've got multiple calls from, I'll tell you who's my phone's starting to light up from are the mothers that are being extorted. I don't know how many mothers are calling me because their son's being raped. They're begging to move them from, this prison to that, only to find out the prison they moved them from is worse than the one that they had that nobody would have thought could get worse, and you send them and it's worse.
Well, JJ, I get what I'm getting is that our inmates that we have today are just meaner than they were 5 years ago. I don't know if that's true.
When you let them do whatever they want, that probably is a semi-true statement. I don't think they're any meaner. You may have more. There seems to be less respect and more just in society. Not just in prisons. I think that's society, and so that may be. And you're getting the worst of society probably in there. So that attitude may be a little more prevalent. But when you don't put attitudes in check, that's what corrections is supposed to be. Behavioral change and evidence-based practice is what you do to do those. This crew ain't got a clue what the practices of you have to reward. And everybody in corrections knows this. They may not know what it's called, but they know that you have to be consistent, you have to be fair, and you have to be fast. You have to address issues consistently, fairly, and immediately. And when you don't do that, guess what? You got problems. And it's that simple. Treat everybody the same, treat everybody fairly, and deal with problems immediately, and do not let them continue to fester and fester. But when you let them go on, and when you treat one group because you're worried about they'll do something, you let them do stuff, and then you go after other people, guess what? Then that group knows they can get away with anything.
Well, are the fights this group beating up other groups? We're getting video of them now. They doing where they couldn't do it just 5 years ago. They all have phones, so they're videoing the fight. And usually it's one guy starts with one guy hitting another guy, then there 5 guys hitting that same person. Is this always going on that way? That this many? That it's constantly? Are we going the cell phone?
Bob, we always had some cell phone. Since cell phones really got popular, you always fight to have that. But when that's another thing, when we're talking about escalation, when we're talking about problems, when they're so emboldened that not only would they videotape something and send it out on the internet is pretty bold for a prisoner. That's very, very bold.
Well, when you film the sex and send it to a news station.
But here's the deal, Bob. The beat up inmates and filming yourself doing it, and them not trying to hide their face. They're on there just straight outright. Here I am. We're going to beat the hell out of this guy. And what are you going to do about it? That is when that should send a message to the administration. When they will do that, that is emboldened. We ain't scared of you. We can less. And they're doing that to send a message. We're in control, not you in control. Or that's what that speaks to me, being in that.
What do you think about that, Jason?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When you have one officer and he's watching 160 people or whatever, and he starts out, because a lot of these guys on these housing units are typically your newer officers. When he doesn't have anybody else around him, he's by himself all the time. He starts out, those inmates too, they're constantly working on that guy. They're constantly working. That's the only guy that guy has. After a while, that officer the only one he has to talk to is inmates. And, and they know how to work on that. And so they compromise them that way. The guy in the video on the rape, he was comfortable enough that he knew nobody else was going to be around. The video caught him and the other inmates, but that's the thing. There's not enough people, and so they work on these guys, and they're by themselves. So your good officers are your ones that, you get a lot of them that quit. They get tired of it, and then the other ones are just they have an I don't care attitude. So the whole problem's compounded, but I would say definitely the violence is up, and the reason you see more gang on gang, they feel there's not enough officers to take the phones from them to start with, so we're not doing proper shakedowns to start with. For 2, they're comfortable enough because they know they don't have enough. There's not enough help to stop these situations, and it all compiles. You got shooting, especially on your night shifts. If your shift supervisor, he's running yard, and you don't have a tower and you don't have a perimeter, you don't have a surveillance. What do you have? One or two responding officers, and you've got, two gangs going at it. They just know. They know too. They know the shape of the prisons, and
Jason,
so it's a combination. It's a combination of there is more violence, but a lot of that is due to the fact that there's not enough staff to properly do the things that the security practices that we have in place, shakedowns, making sure things are locked down. A show of force. A show of force used to, and everybody in corrections knows what I'm talking about. But that's just bringing several people on, the building. You have an incident. You bring 10, 12 officers. Okay, if this doesn't happen, this is what we're going to do. If you guys don't start listening, this is what we're going to do. But you would have enough officers to show that you have enough officers. They can't do a show of force.
Well, let's change the subject a little bit here. What we have now is our discipline against officers. If an officer or inmate dies in jail, in the cell, they've got to blame somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be blame somebody. So they pick out who they're going to do. They're going to blame. Just recently, they blamed a death on a lieutenant because he didn't pepper spray. Last time that he pepper sprayed, he got in trouble for pepper spraying, and now you got to pepper spray. And then the warden shows right up, and she says she's taking charge. Well, the guy is in his cell. He's dead. They can't go in the cell because they didn't have 5 people to go in there to do that. Is what the policy said. So they had to wait for 5 people. Then they show up. They don't have a stab vest on. Then they're sent back to get stab vests, which are supposed to have stab vests, but they send them back to get stab vests. But if we had stab vests for everybody, that wouldn't have ever happened. But anyway, by the time they get in there, the guy's he's done gone. So what do? We blame it on the officer. All on that. They do it on every time. But here's the thing about it. We go to civil service. And who wrote civil service? Hart. He wrote the new policy. He's proud of it. He did it. And we thought when he wrote that, we read this thing, we would never win a case. Never win a case because it wasn't written for the employees. It's written for the employers. We didn't think he was going to win, but we're winning. We're winning at his own game. We're winning because they come into a civil service question, exam, whatever it is.
Bob.
Hearing. Thank you, JJ. I'm glad you spoke up there.
I got your back, Bob.
Thank you, JJ. But for the hearing, they show up with one piece of paper that said this guy violated this. No proof that it ever happened. No witnesses. They don't bring any witnesses. It just, you take their word for it. Well, what happened? We win. I mean, keep it up. But you know what they do? Jason, I bet you don't even know this. The hearing judge rules in our favor. Not once, not twice, maybe 3 times. Rules in our favor, but they appeal. So what kind of a message is that sending out to the people?
I just waste money and time.
DLC.
Well,
their own worst enemy is the way they're doing things, and that's wrong. And then when you come in and take over, and you just come in, you go out and fire. What they fire 9 wardens.
That's where the narcissism comes in. He can't, he gets a legal verdict and he can't even, and then they keep appealing, and all they're doing is wasting time and money.
It's not just the courts. This guy, authority means nothing to him. He is the authority, and that's why you see this attitude. We don't need to show up in court with actual facts. We don't need the actual written documentation showing that we did progressive discipline like policy says. We don't need anything that shows that officer actually instructed or that this person actually did something that would warrant firing. You just take our word. We said you do. And that's what they expect out of the courts. That's what they expect. So if you call and say, I need these records, I'm chairman of correction, elected official, you're an unelected bureaucrat who answers to us. Well, guess what? I'm not going to send you these, and I'll make up a bunch of BS reasons why I'm not, but I'm not. They're confidential. Where's the SIR report confidential? Because you used to send it out to everybody. So saying that's confidential is what we call a big old fat nasty lie, and we can prove that. You used to send it out
Yes.
saying that the.
But wait a minute, JJ. They told you could come over there and look at those records.
Yeah, I mean it's confidential over at our office, but over there something happens in the mid, some kind of time warp or something where it's not confidential in their office, but it is confidential over here. Saying I put out serious incident reports. They said I leaked those. I never got those. And here's even what's worse on that. They're not only lying about me doing it, but when I got them, instead of leaking them, you know what I did?
You notified DOC.
Contacted them and said, hey, I just got a report. And I did that on email because I knew this probably come up. I did it on email and said, hey, y'all got a problem, and here's what your problem is. Guess what? I got the email, sent it back going, they didn't say smoking crack. They said, no, that we looked and that is not a problem. This is not existing. Well, then after I leaked these and got it to the reporter, guess what? When the reporter calls them, we're doing an investigation. And now we wrote 100 and something pages. They didn't need to write 100 pages. They need to look at 3 serious incident reports that had all the details. And guess what? They found not one thing that's in these reports did they claim or say is true. So they ignored their officers. They ignored the truth. They wrote 100 something pages of BS. And I've got all of this in email and all that. It's not me making it up. But that's what's going on. They're lying and they're making up all of this. And I will tell you what, did you ever believe, I got a call, and Bob, you know this, LaToya can testify to this, I get calls from inmates. So we always have phones in there, but not like today. I mean, they will call me, sit there, have a 30-minute conversation on the phone. And again, the other day I had an inmate, and I want to hear what he thinks about this, so we'll have to tell him when he comes back on. But I had an inmate, Bob, call me and say the officer gave that. So, Jason, I want you to hear this. I had the other day an inmate call me and said the officer gave her the phone and the phone number to call me because they got to have some help. And the officer didn't want to be the one contacting me. So they gave the phone to the inmate and gave the number to the inmate and asked the inmate to call me and said, we got to have
They didn't
help.
give her the phone.
Now,
They already had the phone. They just gave her the phone number.
You can't even make that stuff up.
No,
You don't need to make nothing up.
That's what
And
I've
you
been
don't
doing
even-
all along. We don't have to lie or make something up.
No,
We
you don't have
tell
to
us
lie about
something
anything.
real.
You don't have to stretch the truth. It's unbelievable. I have never in 22 years seen the Department of Correction in the shape that it's in.
Well, Jason,
For him to just sit
Jason-
up there and say everything's great,
I know
and everybody in the
everybody knows it's not.
wow.
But I have the OCP. I have the president OCP. They're wanting to get rid of me because exactly what we're doing here today, exposing what's going on.
well,
Because
that president's got his head so far up Harp's honey, I mean, hey, you'd have to take come along to pull him out. I mean, there's no question. Bob, if anybody wants to see, go and look at the email or the text message or whatever you call it, the Facebook comment that he put on there saying that, don't tell Bob Cleveland that I think Harp said, don't tell Cleveland we're going to have a meeting. When did you start taking orders from Harp to undermine the director of your association? Now, you got to read into these statements what they're saying. Harp's telling me what to do, and I'm following Harp's instruction to make sure the director of your association, the Employees Association, don't tell him we have and I think they called it a secret meeting. Now, here's the deal. What come out of that secret meeting? Nobody knows. It's a secret. And what has that guy done for you as OCP members? I can tell you what he's done. Zero. He's undermined. He's caused us where we can't do anything. He's empowered Stephen Hart because he's looking to enrich himself. He's trying to make himself look good to that guy. He's a sellout. He's the sorriest individual I've known. Sorry individual. That guy may be one of the sorriest sellouts, and he sold every member. He sold every employee down the road.
Mhm.
He is sorry. I put him right over there with them. He needs to be over there in their camp.
Well, I will say this: his boss, his director calls him. He has to do what he says. I mean,
No problem.
that's
No problem.
that's why they shouldn't have a somebody in there
Yes.
that addresses. You ought to have retired people on that board
Mhm.
because what you're doing, he's calling him in. Yes, sir.
If his director calls him in and wants to meet as an employee, he's got to go. As the president of OCP, he does not. That is an outside.
That's
So
different.
if I walk in there, I'm going, are we meeting? And I would have sent this in an email because I'd had records. I would have said, one, are we meeting as an employee boss or am I meeting as an OCP member? Because again, am I getting paid to come meet you? If I am, I'm an employee. If I'm an OCP person and I'm having that meeting, if you want to go back and get Everson's so stupid. He acts like I'm such a professional. He's a moron, and they're playing him, and they laugh at him because he is a moron. And here's the deal: he hasn't had one proper election, not one proper election. He hasn't had one proper announced meeting. So everything he does is illegitimate, improper, unprofessional. Him going over to meet, you want to get him in trouble? Look, he can't get paid. Did he go over as a paid employee, or is he saying, and he's already put out, I was OCP going over? Well, did you get paid? Because if you are, then you're violating a whole lot of things. I think you might be possibly breaking the law right there. And again, that's the stuff that you got to look at because Hart cannot tell him, he cannot tell you. He is the OCP. So again, Hart cannot say that. And when they do, you're looking at a real problem. And again, I think you got a great lawsuit in violating your employment. So I think that you could actually, if you get fired, Bob, I think you could sue Stephen Hart big time. I think you could sue Everson because they have interfered with, it's called tortious interference with contract. And again, I think with all of those documented, don't tell him, keep him out. I will tell you another thing. They've taken where you got your roster where you're supposed to keep up. And why you do that is so that you keep up how many members to see is the money that DOC is sending you, is it right? You got to make
reconcile sure you got to reconcile the membership list.
Okay. But here's the deal. He has kept those from you in an intention to try to keep you from doing your job. Then he's going to turn around and say, you're not doing your job. He sabotaged you. He's trying to make you look bad to say you need to be fired. How sorry can you be? And then to think that that's slick, he thinks that's slick when any moron can see it. And again, you talk about sorry. He's willing to sell out and to cost the OCP, which he's supposed to represent, which he never was elected, by the way. Guys, he was never elected. He's trying to ruin your association because Hart does not want your association because of this right here. Because I can tell you right now, Hart has never been in the media. I mean, DOC, a director of DOC has never been in the media like this guy has. They have never caught the heat that this guy has. And I will tell you about 90% of that is because OCP, what I get from Bob and what I get from you guys, and that's what it is. It's not me. I am relating on what I get. And if it wasn't for you employees telling us what's going on, if it wasn't for Bob working, if it wasn't for Jason giving us this information, then I wouldn't be able to have the hearings and we wouldn't be able to expose all the stuff we're doing. I'll shut up, Bob, but that guy riles me, man. Scott Everson riles me. He's a sellout, worthless
Bob, can we not have just let's just set a date and start publicizing it? Let's set a date for all of the OCP members to meet at some place.
Well, it's not my
Yeah.
position to do that. I'm the executive director, but I'm not a dictator, and I don't run it, and I'm not an OCP actually member. I was appointed by the board, so but the membership could call a meeting. If he got one called next month, but the membership could call a meeting anytime they want. I would think. Now I don't know.
Well,
JJ, what if we put a date out? Let's say a weekend in April or something, and we put a date out and said information for all the OCP members if they want to come to a specific place to meet.
Well, I will tell you this. He purposely picked a time. He picked a time when nobody would be able to meet. And so what he did, I think, is it May the 7th, Bob, that he's going to, and he picked 8 o'clock. Now,
8 a.m.
You know what I'm saying? Let me pick the worst day I could, the worst time. And the more I think he's smart. He's so damn smart. And I mean, look at he's just a moron. I will tell you this. He's just so sad of it. He's sad. He's sad.
That was pretty smart for him. I bet the director had to give him that time and day.
I'm not going to say that he's not like,
has his moments.
What he does. Criminals are smart too. Criminals are smart. Worthless people, you can't say. But the deal I get, he thinks he's so smart when it's so evident at what he's doing. But here's what I would say, Jason. Let's get the word out. Let's people take off. Let's do something to get enough people in there, and let's vote his sorry ass out. And then we can have meetings and set up real meetings. Let's vote a board. Let's make a policy. We're retired. Hey, I was FOP. Guess what? We had it to where we wanted retired people in there because it built up the money we were getting. We had retired people. In fact, we had a position that was the former president. So again, people who were retired generally was past presidents, what we call them. And we had a past president who would probably be a retired person and that's why we had them there, because they could go do stuff that other people couldn't. And we had other people on the board that were retired. So our board.
The members of OCP need to pick the board, not Scott Everson.
Oh, absolutely. And Scott was appointed, and then Scott has picked the board. Where have you had an election? That is total BS. And for that guy to even such a puke to do that, I mean, it's sad. And then he comes on and talks about me. And I know I little rant and rave, and I call, it's probably not professional, call him a puke. But he is a puke, so I'll just go ahead and be unprofessional. I don't mind being called unprofessional, but I'll cop to it. You know what I'm saying? Unlike him.
Well, but Jason, may not be. I don't know if I ever told you a story about my first time I had a meeting with Harp. First thing out of his mouth was, you, but I don't like OCP. But I said, well,
that lets you know he doesn't want to work with anybody.
He told me he wouldn't work with me. He told me I don't like OCP. And, I'm not going to work with you. I don't need a third party in here. I said, well, OCP wasn't put together for you, for the director. It was put together to give people a voice. Well, they have a voice. They'll have a voice. They can come see me anytime. My door's always open.
I would have been the complete opposite. I want to work with everybody and work together to try to resolve the issues.
Well, anyway, he told me right off the bat he didn't like OCP. He don't like you have third parties, don't like the interference. He wants to be able to do things the way he wants to do. He didn't want to answer any questions or anybody. Well, basically, that's what it's all about. So in that time frame, he worked to try to get rid of me. He won't talk to me. We even got a call at one time from one of his top people. They said, I was just telling you that Harp does not want us talking to you. You're not allowed to go to any prison or do anything. You don't call us here at the Capitol. At Martin Luther King. You don't call us over here. We will not take your call. We do. He does not like you, and we can't talk to you.
Sorry.
Well, and he's done the same thing to me, Bob. And again, I didn't really start take out after him. I was pretty. In fact, I was very cooperative with him and tried to work with him for probably the first 8 months that he was in. I would say he came in October. I could go get you the email that I wrote the governor and the Secretary of Public Safety and said, hey, gloves coming off. It's done. In fact, I may use the word, I'm going to try to spank his ass. Anyways, that was last May, I believe. So less than a year ago, roughly, 10 months ago or so. And in 10 months, I mean, look at what's happened and what we've exposed and what we're saying, but it's because he refuses to work with anybody. Here's what's funny. He wants to look like the highway patrol, and he can't even get things straight down at the bottom level. Quit worrying about trying to be the highway patrol and take care of your employees and inmates, and all that can come later. Like we said, start at the bottom, move and work to overcome all the stuff. But here's what's funny. You know what? One of the coolest things about the highway patrol, super strong association. The highway patrol has a huge, strong association. And guess what? And so,
if you look at JJ, if you look at where the director came from, OMES, what kind of shape was it in?
Oh yeah, hey, Bob. I don't know. I think you went to a deal the other night, but I think the state auditor is going back to the time that Harp was over OMES, and she's saying there was astronomical problems with money. Things like, look, hey.
Well, she doesn't ever say his name. She just said the problems with the OMES.
Yeah, but it was during the time period. You don't have to say his name. You look at the time period she's looking at, who was the director during that time period. It was him. And when you talk about that we did away with the bidding process, Bob, we talked about how that he did away with merit protection so that he could make it to where they could fire employees faster. And so that's what that was all about. I mean, that's what that was about. It wasn't for employees. It was so we can fire employees in a faster rate and not have to do all the work. Again, he was the author of that. Did he do away with the billing practices so that we have an open bidding process? So again, what happened? You have nepotism, cronyism, favoritism, fire whoever you want, bring your best friend, bring some political appointee's kid over, and let's do that. Bring somebody over who's not qualified, make them a doctor, give them a great salary just because you like them. And that's what we're seeing. Guess what? When you see these open bids, we don't need open bids anymore. We'll go give our favorite friend down here down the road a contract astronomically called Swadley's. If you want to see it, how it's played out, it's Swadley's Barbecue. And guess what? That happens. Now, can you say he did illegal? But you can say because of the business practices that he put in, he created this atmosphere. And guess what? They snuck him out the back door because there's a lot of problems at OMES. They put him over there, not qualified, not experienced, no nothing. Give him an illegal 90,000 raise. I think illegal unless he can verify who authorized that.
Well, why would he? I mean, we got to go. But I want to ask you a question. Why would he just not tell you who gave him that raise, that salary?
Bob, I wrote him 3 times. I've sent him the law. There's 3 places that can authorize you to do that. One is the board, one is the legislator. I've looked, it's not the legislator. So there's only 2. It's one's the board and one's the governor. Send me verification that the governor or the board gave you a 90,000. Now here's the problem, Bob. He's already come out publicly and said, well, I just transferred that salary from OMES to DOC. So one, if he does come back and give that verification, he's lying, because then, oh, no, I got a raise. So he didn't transfer it. He's going to say the governor gave him a raise. But at the end of the day, he can't whitewash this. But if they don't go back and backdate some records or do something, then guess what? He gave himself a $90,000 raise. You can't just give your willy-nilly self a $90,000 raise. That's what we like to call it in the criminal justice business, embezzlement. You cannot just take $90,000 out of the till and give it to your own self.
Well, thank both of you guys for being here today. We appreciate it. Appreciate your your input. And Jason, you've been great for us to help us to even understand some of the things that's going on. But it's very concerning on how bad the rapes, the fights,
Violence, drugs.
the violence. Yeah, it's just it's very concerning.
Hey, before we get off, I want to ask Jason one thing. We've all talked about escalation, how you see it more and more and more. What happens when you start having inmate on staff violence and you start seeing it escalate to a regular? What's the next thing that happens, Jason?
I don't even want to say, but we know it's coming. It's going to be something major. They're going to take part of that prison. There's going to be, whether they burn it or, people, officers, staff, other inmates that aren't involved, people's going to get hurt. And it's